Yeah.
What did Ellen ever contribute, or any Adventist doctrine, that you can't bypass and go straight to the four Gospels and go, there it is,
Yeah.
nice and simple, easy
Yeah.
to understand.
Yeah.
If God was speaking through her, anything that came to her to us would be simple to understand, but it's not. Even the Desire of Ages and Steps to Christ and all this sort of stuff, if you really read it, it starts getting really confusing.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, go ahead. Do you have a question?
Yeah, just on that, what you were talking about being confusing is that in the past year and a half, Ted Wilson was having a sermon, and he holds up the Bible and he says, "We are a Bible-based." I'm like, what? What? I was really confused because I was like, everything that you stand on, at least that you inflict on other religions, has nothing to do with the Bible. How can you? And it just dawned on me. I thought, well, he's saying we're a Bible-based religion because they're having trouble convincing people that they are, and so they have to actually bring it up. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I still can't.
Yeah. Well, okay, I have a question. We can keep getting on this, but I keep back on this, but I do have a question for you because, okay, so Miles and Elsa Thunder Lawrenston and myself,
Colin,
a whole bunch of
Colin the ambassador.
Yes, we are all on the same page as far as we want the Seventh-day Adventist church to disappear. And not in a bad way. And I don't mean that. I mean, I want all the denominations to disappear. I would love unity among Christians. And so that would mean, everybody gives up, something to be able to, because Jesus said, they will know you're Christians by your love for one another. One faith, one baptism.
Not Unitarian.
But you seem to be okay. And I'm just telling you what comes across, that you seem to be okay with the Adventist church splitting and the progressives in one. In other words, keep their denomination. You're okay with them keeping the Adventist denomination. And yet you want it to be on one side, the more real Adventist, like Ted Wilson, and then the progressives.
And the gospel Adventists.
Yeah, because you're saying they're never going to be able to come together. And I'm just, explain what you want in that way.
So, because of my personality, and because I'm personally not actually making any public belief claims, I personally find, and because of my connection for 30 plus years with several different streams of a career, which to me has been one thing, playing this guitar with certain kinds of chords slowly, playing this guitar faster with distortion, playing this guitar with a sitar blended in. It's all me playing music, largely original music. I then connect with these people after the gigs and hang out and, and enjoy a cup of coffee and get on to being a human connecting with another human. And so with Adventism, I wish, I look at people like James Baber, Tess the Prophet, Thunder, Ambassador, Miles Christian, you guys, I look across at you with a bit of envy, because you guys have got a solid anchor of belief and the ability to engage with people in a way that can confront their beliefs in a way that is kind of effective in proving points right or wrong. And I think it's super important that you guys and myself are in the same playpen, because we bring something different to the whole big picture.
That's right.
But because of the things I just mentioned, I I don't have anything better to offer, but what I observe within Adventism is a lot of cognitive dissonance, delusion, mental health issues.
Yeah.
Often people not even aware that that's what's happening to them. And so what I try and do, a lot of people don't pick up on it, but I'm quite like my who is the real Adventist comment. Do I think all Adventists can claim to be Adventists? Of course I do. But I know that by saying Ted Wilson is a real Seventh-day Adventist, that's going to create dialogue. And dialogue always leads to people being better defined at what they believe.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to say, let's have a gospel group over here and let's have a fundamental group over here, and you guys, let's organize different conferences.
Okay.
I'm literally just saying, here's a little bit of a provocative thought. Talk about it so that you can better define what you believe. And what then happens, I've noticed from my little part of this bigger idea of opposing Adventist apologists, people start to think and they go, hang on a second, it is crazy what I'm believing. And then they make a decision using their own brain to do whatever they want to do.
Right.
I want people to make their own decisions in life using their own brain.
Yeah.
Now, I love analyzing Mormonism. I love analyzing, JFK assassination. I love analyzing the golden era of the movies. I did a deep dive into the rock and roll era of 1956 to 1976. Deep dive. I just love looking at stuff. So at the moment, Adventism's the big thing on my table. I just go, wow, I cannot take my eyes off it. It's this dramatic thing. At every turn, there's something interesting there. And so I'm drawn to it. And as I'm drawn to it, I know a lot about it. And so I feel like I'm not trying to tell anybody what to think. I'm trying to encourage people to think.
Yeah.
Because Adventism stops you thinking. Adventism suppresses you. Adventism takes away your power. Adventism turns you into a weak sheep. And so I will look at the leaders and I will say something like, with women's ordination, I'll say something like, wow, our SPD and union leaders here in Australia are weak. They are so weak. I know behind the scenes they support women's ordination, but in public they won't. Come on my show. And I don't know why, but people see what I've said as quite calm and pleasant. And then all around is this massive big fight goes on. This one that that resurrected itself from 2 years ago and has been annoying me in the last couple of weeks was about a photo that was posted on the Adventist Union Facebook site. And the photo is all men. And I wrote something about, that's interesting, where are the women, kind of thing like that. So I get a lot of pushback in the last 2 weeks of, here's a picture of the Last Supper, and here's Jesus surrounded by men. Do you want to leave Christianity too? And I'm like, you're totally missing the point. A, I'm stimulating debate. What do I believe? Who cares? Maybe I don't even know. And B, what's happening here is Adventist leadership using women's ordination as a suppression of women. Agree with it or not, that's what's happening. Agree whether women should be ordained or not, that's not my whole point. My point is that they are using that to suppress women. I don't care if every picture in that union conference leadership photograph, I don't care if they're all white men that are 40 to 60. I don't care if they're all women. I don't care if they're all whatever race you pick. I don't care if they're whatever gender you pick. I care about equal opportunity and people using their own brain. And so when I see that picture, I see the reason there aren't many women there is not just because we want equity and everybody to have let's get it all equal. So we've got one woman and someone here from whatever part of the world. I see a mechanism in place by the leadership that is saying that because you're a woman, there are 10 of these 30 jobs, roughly, I don't know, don't quote me, that you cannot have because you're a woman. So I see that as an injustice. I see that as traumatic for women growing up, going, wow, because I'm a gender, I can't be a pastor, or if I do, I have to be a commissioned pastor, and there's jobs I can't get. And so I stimulate that kind of conversation, and it seems that I do it in a way that, like you said earlier, and I appreciated that, that there's a kindness element to it, because on the big picture for me is I do just enjoy hanging out with people, but I get annoyed, if systems are suppressing people of any kind of system that suppresses and oppresses people I don't like, and B, because I like to stir the pot and have people come up with their own decisions. Mm-hmm. When that post came out 2 years ago, I had 6 women that week after that post write to me and say, we're leaving the church because of that post. Thank you. Wow. What's the process? So I just told them the process. So I'm kind of normalizing in my approach that it's okay to question, like your book, which I've got right here, that it's okay not to be an Adventist. I'm normalizing that that's true. It is okay, because if you use your own brain, you're going to be okay. And for some reason, in the last couple of weeks, the Adventist apologists have not liked that, and they've pushed back on me more than ever. Mm-hmm. So maybe you'll see me being a little bit more pushed back in future interviews. It's kind of up to them, really.
just to add to what you just said, I wanted to be an Adventist pastor growing up, but it was unthinkable. It was an absolutely unthinkable thing. And so, of course, what do girls do that want to be pastors? They marry a pastor. And so that's what I mean, even through college, I was absolutely trying to date every single Adventist seminarian that was going to go in the seminary. And they were so rotten. They wanted to sow their wild oats with me before they took that final vow before the Lord to be a pastor. And I was like, you guys are bad. So anyway, but if we had not left Adventism, I would be one of those women up there that was like, hey, yeah, I want to be an Adventist pastor. And now we can do it.
Yeah. I know. Hey, and look, just a quick thought on what I think a real Adventist is. Okay. I'm not totally making a joke or being tongue-in-cheek. Okay. I do believe, because Adventism has this end-time loop, a holding pattern, that relies heavily on believing there's a soon return and a belief that you've got to be ready. And what does that mean? It cannot stray too far from its original goal. And Ted Wilson has nailed the original goal, and he has a huge amount of Adventist doctrine, literature, writers, Ellen G. White, to support what I'm calling real Adventism. Sure, you can be progressive and Des Ford fan, and you can be like the Des Ford kind of Adventism. 10 thumbs up. I think, if you're going to be an Adventist, go for that. And you are still a real Adventist. But I'm talking about this kind of Adventism that is not, it is different to any other denomination. It's more similar to Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons, where you cannot stray too far from this call plan of salvation, because that's the whole point of Adventism. Jesus is coming any day. Get ready. What do we do to get ready? We keep the law. Why are we keeping the law? To vindicate God. Why do we need to vindicate God? To prove Satan's claim we can't keep the commandments. Yeah. Right. That's it in a nutshell. Right. Yeah. And so you cannot stray too far from that. And call yourself, if you do, you are a progressive Adventist. You are a hybrid Adventist. You are an Adventist that's building on from the past. Yeah. But you cannot stray from it as a movement.
Right.
Yeah, and so many young people, like, the people from Seeking What They Sought, these people are trying to move it forward. I know there's a lot of pastors I've spoken to that say we do want to bring the true gospel to Adventists, and that's why they're in there. And they're never going to get any place. They're just not. I mean, you just can't stray from that. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, that's right. Otherwise, it's like I've tried to think of analogies for it. It's like a no, I won't even try. But if your original reason for getting together is to be a special people
Right.
with a special last day
Mhm.
message,
Mhm.
you're kind of bound to that.
Mhm.
And those Adventists that say, well, that's not my Adventism. Great. Well, I don't kind of really see you as a core Adventist then, and that's all right. You're
Well,
still an Adventist. You're still a Seventh-day Adventist.
well, then, if they were really to knock down, let's say, the investigative judgment, sanctuary, and maybe even consider Ellen White a spiritual help, but not a prophetess, then they're really nothing more than just a Baptist or a non-denominational.
Right.
I mean, there's so little difference than them and a lot of Protestants that they have to have that. They have to have it,
Yeah.
or they're going to just disappear into mainstream Christianity.
Exactly. And the
So
whole point of Adventists being distinctive is that they don't want to be part of mainstream Adventism, but with the
Right.
release of Questions on Doctrine back in
That's right.
57,
yeah,
they showed their hand that they do want to be accepted and loved by the evangelical broader church.
Mhm.
So you just can't have it both ways.
yeah, that's right.
I think
You
that
become
really bothered me as a kid, in even to this day, is you can't they won't have any real conversations with anybody that can actually ask the hard questions.
yeah,
Now, I'm not even talking necessarily a debate. I'm just saying they won't openly have conversations with Baptists or evangelicals or anything like that, to where they're put on the spot about what they believe. They
yeah,
won't allow that ever. You don't ever see Doug Batchelor having discussions with um, uh, Billy Graham's son, or
Yeah.
yeah,
just,
yeah.
and it kind of makes you
They,
wonder.
they,
Then where is your your evangelism? Wouldn't that be
yeah,
a good evangelistic
Yeah.
tool? And it's just that,
yeah,
no, we don't want to do that. We're going to stay in our corner,
yeah.
pull the curtain, leave us alone.
Yeah, because the reality is it's such a difficult position to defend.
Yeah.
Unless you bring in Ellen White, you
Yeah.
cannot defend
That's right.
particularly the only unique doctrine, the investigative judgment. You just can't
Right.
defend that with the Bible alone.
Right.
Like you
Yeah.
said before, he holds up the Bible. We're a people of the Bible. The key Adventist foundational pillars,
Right.
even the Sabbath, you have to bring in Ellen White because Ellen saw it as a test of salvation.
Yeah.
That's the irony of claiming to be a Bible-based religion or movement, when it's so clear that the atonement was at the cross, your sins are forgiven, you're saved. It's such a clear teaching that to then try and add little tweaks and twists to it, sure, keep the Sabbath, but
And ignore
really
everything that Paul says
yeah,
about not
yeah,
judging anybody on the Sabbath. So
yeah,
that's a difficult position to try to defend if you were in an open forum where other people can watch you, and
yeah.
you're not willing to defend that except with Ellen White quotes. That's
Yeah.
invincible.
The Adventist apologist can't defend themselves against the average Christian apologist. They can only bring in new members by having them born into the denomination, or through schools where they influence them with all the great happy music and the Adventist schools are great. Like I said, my daughter goes to Avondale, just up the road here. Brilliant school. I'm not criticising it at all, but they are little sales funnels for getting the kids to go, oh well, my friends are Adventist and I like to become one too. And then the only other way they do is with their Revelation seminars, where they have another big sales funnel where people come in and they don't even talk about the Adventist doctrines for ages. So by the time they've gone down the sales funnel, a few will join.
Yeah.
But the reality is, Adventism as a doctrine is a really difficult one to sell.
Most people don't even know the doctrines. So
No,
many
and
Adventists,
within the,
they hear the names. Oh yeah, investigative judgment. I know. I believe in that. They don't even know what it is. It was really only after we left Adventism that we started studying it to be able to say to our family, yeah, we know what we're talking. And I mean, we'd gone to all the schools, but really, really study it. And yeah. So I think most of them don't even realize what they believe. Okay, so
exactly. Yeah,
so could we
exactly.
take this in a slightly different direction now? Do you care?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
No, any direction.
Okay. So many years ago, I started listening to your not podcast, but they were on Facebook. And you spent a lot of years dealing with Des Ford and the Glacier View Conference. And my husband and I have wanted to know this entire time, what's the story behind your interest in that? Because you've really done a lot of work to historically document what's going on. So what was the motivation behind that?
Well, I'm so glad that we're and some people are thinking that you are my guests. Those are just joining. This is Teresa and Arthur's show. We're just going into my audience as well. So I'm their guest, and I'm so glad for these questions because it gives me a chance to unpack things. And I think people get to watch and go, oh, I kind of get a bit more what he's doing. So it's important to know that I am a muso with muso brain, and I don't plan anything. I don't know. I do know who's on next week on the show. One, I'm not sure of the others. I cannot plan my way out of a wet paper bag. I just go with the flow. My whole life is about routine. And when I had a music shop, why did I start a music shop? Because I was at a party one night and the guy who owned the space said, hey, I've got an empty space. Why don't you start a music shop? And I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. So I started a music shop. When I left teaching, I was sitting there one day and I thought, I love teaching. I was a special ed teacher. I had really great connection with the kids. I only had small classes. My biggest class was like nine kids in it. It was year 7, 8, 9, and 10 age group. We had a great time. And but I sat there one day going, I think I want to be a musician full time instead of just playing on the weekends. So I went into the deputy's office. I said, mate, going to give you a notice. How many months do you need? And he's like, oh, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to become a musician. No plan. I just do stuff. Yeah. So and sadly, I sometimes knee jerk as well. I've gotten much better at not doing that. So if someone said, don't start a music shop, I would guarantee start a music shop, that kind of thing. And I don't even do it to prove them wrong or to prove me right. It just comes into my mind, and it can be very frustrating. And my wife will confirm that. But I've done okay. I've done okay, and I've survived, and I get to provide for my family, and I own a few properties, and I've got several businesses that I run, all from a very egalitarian basis. Yeah, I've got a shop about 20 minutes away that is just beautifully located. I'm literally 10 steps away from 5 or 6 cafes.
Wow.
From the door. I'm 15 steps from there's the lake, and I see this beautiful lake. I'm really lucky that for some reason, following my nose, following just wherever the joy takes me, has worked out. And so, yeah, I run a business where I rent the space to over 30 different people.
Wow.
Every day there's something on. Like right now there's something on. I don't know what's on. I set it up so they can advertise themselves within our Facebook group. They have their own key. They leave the money in a vault in the back.
Wow.
They open up, come and go. Another lady organises the schedule.
Wow.
So, but that's a big part of my business. I run another business that hires PA equipment. I've got 3 or 4 staff, but I've got one lady that books all the accommodation and all the staff who run the gear, books the airfares, that kind of thing. SDA Q&A, I come in on a Wednesday and a Thursday and I go, what time am I on? All right. I'll send a message to Adrian, who am I interviewing today? Oh, right, send them the link. So that's a little bit of a background. If you're seeking what's Pete Dixon's plan, why has he gone Des Ford for 86 interviews with one whole season deep dived? I can really only answer that with 2 things. One, I just at that time found it absolutely fascinating and couldn't take my eyes off it. And then I discovered intrigue and mystery and corruption and political manoeuvring. I thought, right, I've got to get into this even more and find out. I've got to find out. Yeah. Essentially, if you're watching my show, you're watching me find out stuff because I love it. And the second thing was, and this is a big thing, anytime I see someone being shut down, I want to give them a voice. Okay. So George Burnside, who I 100% disagree with his theology, he was one of the big movers and shakers over here, long dead now, but he was one of the Concerned Brethren, and he would he was very instrumental in promoting the conservative front and very opposed to Des. Mm-hmm. But because people were trying to suppress his voice, there was a fax going around, and one of the pastors showed me in the early 80s, that both Des Ford and George Burnside weren't allowed to be invited to speak at Adventist churches. Mm-hmm. And so I spent hours and thousands of dollars repairing the Christchurch 1959 Tivoli Theatre sermons of George Burnside and releasing them to the public. Probably $5,000 to $7,000. Wow. Hours and hours of time as you go through the tape and it shreds and you have to record it and then clean it up and then you'll get another minute or 2. There were 22 sermons and each was at least an hour to an hour and a half long. And he preached in this theatre for 22 nights and had 1,000 people on average every night. So I don't agree with him at all, but I do not like when people try to shut him up. And I did not like when people tried to shut Des up. So I thought, and again, the random nature of it, I wrote a post on Facebook before I started SDA Q&A, so about 8 years ago. How about we reinstate Des Ford and forgive or let bygones be bygones? Do you agree? And that just exploded. And I thought, whoa, there's something to follow. So I trotted off and started SDA Q&A. One last quick thing on that. When the season 2 started, which you're probably referring to, that you were listening to and watching on Facebook, and you've probably heard me say this, but your viewers may not have heard this before. Lance Cameron Eggy, a young guy who was studying the ministry he was only 21 at the time, in the Philippines. He had stumbled across to my first 3 interviews with Des Ford on the podcast, which is only available still in podcast form. So season 1 was on the podcast format. Season 2 was Facebook. Season 3 on has been Facebook and YouTube. So anyway, he said, I love that so much. Bill Johnson was involved. Why don't you interview Bill? He was there on the ground. And I said to him, look, I hadn't even done an SDA Q&A for maybe 18 months. Maybe, can't remember. But I was like, no, I've left the church now. I'm moving away. But fate would combine that conversation with lockdown, COVID, and my saying no inspired this young guy, Lance, to contact Bill Johnson. And a week or 2 later, Lance contacts me and says, I've organised an interview with you and Bill for next week. And I'm like, oh, okay. So again, part of my random, just follow my nose, no plans. I set up Facebook. We only had a couple of hundred members. So I went back to the group I'd started on Facebook, that had a couple of hundred members. And I worked out how to go live on Zoom to the Facebook group, and I did the interview. And as I'm doing the interview, and I said to Bill Johnson, how confident are you that something supernatural happened that night, October 22, 1844? And he pauses. And I thought, wow, an Adventist leader shouldn't pause with that question.
Yeah.
And I'm watching my monitor, and by the end of that interview, which was about 2.5 hours long, I had over 1,600 people had joined the group. It had just shared everywhere. And I thought, oh, okay, well, Glacier View sounds interesting. Contacted Gillian, can you come on the show? She saw the thing, that episode, and yeah. And then she had a couple of people she recommended. I was going to do 6 shows, shut down SDA Q&A, go follow my dreams of just playing music when lockdown had finished. Next minute, 86 interviews later, and
Next minute. Yeah, it's funny.
So that's a long answer to your question. But does it answer your question?
Yes, it does. But
wonderful.
I have to be honest with you. You really have given Bill Johnson. Is that who it is? I'm trying to remember the guy that said that you just brought up, William Johnson, right?
Yes, yeah.
So
Dr.
you've
William
given
G.
him,
Johnson.
you've given him a real slide, because when he said that, I was so upset, because I thought, he has been willing to go all these years living this lie. And I'm sorry. I actually felt so sorry for him on John Ankerberg's, because I felt he seemed so meek. You know what I mean? He just seemed like, oh, I'm being beaten up by all these people. And, he played the victim, and he sucked me into it. And I felt so sorry for him. And, after your interview, it just made me so upset with him. And I hope he's in heaven, and God bless him. And I'm not mad at him or anything, but it's just like, why do these Adventist leaders, when they realize it's a sham, come out, and say it? There's another person that was an SDA pastor, very dear person to me, who went to seminary, heard from all the teachers, and this was back in the 50s and 60s, heard from all the teachers that Ellen White was a sham. They knew that, all of this was not true. And yet they raised their children in the church. They let their kids go and be taught this in the Adventist schools, and did not stop this. Did not stop it. I don't understand that.
So just an interesting little side note, and I'm tempted to play you the little clip of it, but because I just happen to have it here.
Do it.
Because maybe because your viewers don't know what we're talking about in some ways. My viewers would know it and are sick of it. But I'll bring it up, because here's the interesting thing. Because of Bill Johnson being on Ankerberg in 1984 and what he said on that show, he created the myth that at Glacier View, where Des Ford was, told that his views were going to be examined, but it wouldn't be a trial. It turned out to be a trial, a kangaroo court. In that meeting, that week-long meeting on the Friday, Bill Johnson, that we're talking about, Dr. William G. Johnson, he and 2 others formed this consensus document that they read out and they voted on. And the majority of those present, over 120 people, ministers, theologians, scholars, academics, admin, agreed that they could live with that. They voted an agreement. There was a consensus on the consensus document. Even Ford.
Yeah.
That afternoon, Ford and Gillian are herded into the little office with only maybe, she'll correct me, but 6 or 8 people. And they were presented with a 10-point statement saying, hey, look, we know that we've got a consensus back here, and this is not going to be brought out to judge. But are these the areas you do really disagree with? What are your thoughts on those? And Des said, well, I can't, in all conscience, agree with coming on board with those. Thank goodness we've already had the consensus vote. Mm. Those 10 points were what we used to defrock him.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
So here's my point. Bill Johnson on the Ankerberg show says, I'll play it, that the majority disagreed with Des.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So Bill Johnson creates a myth that was to last 40 years.
Right.
Wow.
In my interview with him, which I'll play, the little snippet, he says the majority agreed with Des.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my mind, the Adventists still think that the majority disagree with Des. Mm-hmm. No, it was a political maneuver, kangaroo court, and that's why Des got kicked out.
Wow.
I am warmer on Bill Johnson because I go, here but for the grace of God go I stayed till I was 54. Mm-hmm. What was I doing? What was I saying to people from the stage? Just follow Jesus, when I knew the investigative judgment was a load of cray-cray.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He at least, in his retired safety years, revealed the biggest fraud put on Adventism that he'd perpetuated, that he'd started, ironically.
Wow.
And so what I'm able to do is go, I'm okay with that, but I am super glad that people like yourself, Teresa, were angry, because I wanted people to be angry. Yeah. So it's a hard one for people to understand with me, because I'm really calm about it. There you go, Bill. Thank you for being honest. I'm super glad you were. Shall we go and have a coffee? But I wanted people to be angry. I wanted people to be engaged. And I cannot explain that about me.
Well, I can be angry with them and take him out and have coffee and be angry with them and then give him a hug afterwards. But I couldn't believe, because where is the courage?
Exactly.
Where's the courage in our men?
Yeah.
Anyway.
And what's great is when people are angry, and I think it's totally fine to be angry, some interesting things happen. As I said, people write to me every month, I've left the church because of that information you gave me. I go, great. That's awesome, because you're using your own brain. Your anger gave you the power and the wind in your sail to think for yourself. Mm-hmm. If people write to me and say, hey, I stayed because of that interview, I saw hope in it, and I thought a lot about it, and it upset me, great. You've used your own brain. I might disagree, but you've used your own brain. Yeah. Can I play those two clips just
sure,
quickly?
Yeah,
please do.
They're right here. So this is the Ankerberg show, the 1984, and you'll hear what Bill has to say. I think people will still hear us talking, so we'll just listen.
The view that I hear is that we can disagree with Ellen White, and that is of no consequence.
That's what we're hearing. Well, that's what I'm hearing.
It happens in practice in certain parts of the world. But that's the one illustration we were bringing up. It seems in practice that that's the only thing that we can see against a guy like Des Ford, Walter Ray.
Desmond Ford's teachings were tested against the Scripture, and the Glacier View group testing them against the Scriptures did not see light in his view. It is out of that context, not against Ellen White.
See, that's not what happened. They agreed with Des and came to consensus, and he started the myth that they did not see light. And Adventist apologists often talk like that. Their voice goes, hey, look, I really hear what you're saying, but they, when we tested it to the Bible, they did not see light in that.
That's right.
So then here's him, just a quick clip in with my interview.
We developed what we called a consensus statement. That Glacier View, the conference itself, was scheduled to end at noon on the Friday. Okay. Friday morning, the consensus statement that we developed was brought to the floor. It was read, it was discussed, and it was voted. if not unanimously, very close. And very interestingly, Desmond Ford said, I can agree with everything in this statement.
Mm. Yeah, I understand that people left the meeting feeling quite positive about the consensus statement.
Yeah.
So there we have the opposite of what he said on the Ankerberg show. The majority agreed with the consensus statement.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah, so I seem to be able to have this ability to kind of be the eye of a storm where I'm quite calm and happy and no increase in blood pressure. And yet some of the mildest, calmest things I say off the show create quite a lot of turbulence.
Yeah.
And for some reason, and I'm really thankful, a lot of the Adventists will still allow me to interview them.
It's kind of miraculous. You're just amazing.
It
No, it's
really,
true. It's
it really
very true.
is. You are a rarity.
Yeah.
Growing up, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the one we did on both of our histories, but I was very Orthodox growing up, Adventist Orthodox. My father was a principal and a pastor and the educational superintendent for Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma Conference. He actually chose all the educational materials,
curriculum.
all the curriculum. He made the curriculum. So to me, I know what they teach. I know how they teach it. And it just to hear what happened to Ford and hear what happens to you, even talking about Ford, and it's like it's never ending. It's like, can we just have a conversation? And the conversation never happens. And I just find that very sad. So when we found your show, it was so wonderful to listen because you actually listen. There's communication going on. Some people have complaints, some people are happy with and it's just, you do such a good job with that.
Yeah.
You impress us greatly.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I honestly have no hidden agenda. I'm not trying to be calm to loosen them up in any way.
And that comes across very, very well. It's like you said, it's like when some of the Adventist theologians they have that particular way of talking. They lower their voice and they start talking in a particular manner. And everybody just starts rolling their eyes like, oh, no, not again.
Yeah.
You never have that. You have a very authentic, wonderful way of communicating.
Well, I'm glad that comes across because I know in my heart I'm definitely not trying any little sneaky Machiavellian move.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
Nobody's going to believe that. I mean, in other words, Adventists, well, no, but they are believing you because they come on your show. But I mean, it's not like an Adventist to trust a former Adventist. That's just very unusual. I can't get them on our show.
Well, I have trouble now getting, I put the challenge out there for any currently employed ordained pastor to come on my show and talk about women's ordination, the sanctuary doctrine. None of them will. I'm friends with them still.
Yeah.
As we're making jokes about cafe culture, literally catch up with them. They send me lots of messages. In the last couple of weeks, lots of pushback, which is interesting. But generally speaking, they're friendly with me, but they won't come on the show. And you know why they won't come on the show?
Absolutely.
Because they will be faced with this dualism that they live with.
That's
that
right.
They want to say, I support women's ordination personally, but I lose my job if I say that.
That's
and
right.
so they can't come on because they'll have to face themselves if they do.
Yeah. I grew up steeped in that. being around so many different types of pastors. My best friend, his father was the dark area evangelist for the whole Southwest or Southeast. And it's like you said, it's the way they talk. They always talk in party line, and you try to get them out into a normal conversation. It's just so difficult. And so God bless you for doing what you do, because
I really appreciate that, and I really enjoy it. And I've set it up so a lot of people say, "Oh, you must spend hours on this." I literally, like, a big week would be 10 hours. My average week is 6 hours. If people have got a day job, that's 40 hours a week. When I had my music shop, I was doing 60 hours a week.
Wow.
So I've kind of set up my life to be semi-retired, and because I know I'm very unorganized, I literally just come into the shed, send the link out, do the show. It's all automated now. It all just goes and saves on the platforms. I don't have to edit later. It's actually a really joyous flow as far as a work process goes.
Right.
And the same with my business in town. I hardly do anything at all. I have fun. I go and do some workshops there myself. On Sunday night, well, I don't even do that anymore. There's a lady that does the schedule stuff, and she just puts it on the wall, and all the people that book the space send me the money direct deposit or put it in the vault at the back. They contact her to make the bookings, and then with the hiring stuff, that's people running that. And then when I do gigs, I just book in the date and tell the band and turn up and play. So I'm very happy, actually. And people say, "Oh, you're bitter and angry and I've got an axe to grind." I really am not.
No.
I don't know where they would have gotten that from. You come across very joyous
I really love life, and I don't bog down in Adventism. Like, because someone might watch a show and think, "Wow, that was 2.5 hours of Adventism."
Yeah.
It's 6 hours of my week, and my week is just full of so many other things.
Yeah.
Like, embarrassingly so. I forget what I'm doing with SDA stuff.
Exactly.
You seem to be like us, where we basically live the book title, "It's Okay Not to Be a Seventh-day Adventist."
Yeah.
But the reason it is stated such is we're like you. We love them. We have family. Most of my family, if not all my family, are Adventists.
Yeah.
Her family, a lot of them are still Adventists. It's not like we have an axe to grind. Neither of us went through a period of anger or hurt or anything like that. She had a lovely upbringing. Mine was very orthodox, but I mean, my reason for leaving was, came down to theology.
Yeah.
But I wasn't angry about it.
Yeah.
I wasn't hurt by it.
Well, it was actually more, because what happens is when you leave Adventism, you get attacked, and then you're like defensive, and you go, no. And then they're like, "Oh, you are angry." Well, no, that's what they do. And I felt caught.
You just punch me in the face. Punch me in the face and it hurts, but I'm not angry.
Yeah. And I must say, in the last 2 weeks, with some of these subtle, progressives coming out at me with the kind of attack that I wasn't expecting from them. I thought, these are my friends. These are literally the people I hung with when I was an Adventist. And just, I don't know if you heard. I'm going to do a whole program on it. Not because I'm angry anymore, but because it just, some of the stuff they said was so silly, like, "Oh, you've had your feelings hurt, you're running off to mummy now." And I'm like, what? I don't even get that. But I did find myself respond maybe twice with a little bit of a left hook, kind of thing. And then I thought, I literally, I wrote that, and then I drove into my little retreat center. And on the way, which is like literally 15, 20 minutes, I started laughing. I thought, And then I wrote back on the post, actually, you know, I'm friends with this guy, and I'm really pleased that he feels he can just be public and express his upset at me. Like, that's a good sign of a friendship if someone's going to be willing to be open about what they disagree with.
Should be.
And yeah, and so I kind of went, you know, I had a 20-minute of, you know, going from, right, I'm going to write this and really point out what a stupid thing to say, you know, like, of course I'm not saying that, you know, everyone has to be blah, blah. And then I thought, oh, it's just ridiculous, because the majority of people get what I was doing.
Yeah.
In fact, he did me a favor. I had, because this one person in particular was writing all this kind of negative stuff about me, just undermining my reputation and undermining me as a person. Not talking about the content. He was not willing to do that. But he did me a favor. I got the restream stats came in later that night, that end of that week. And in the 1 week, I had 75 new subscribers.
Yay.
And over 11,000 views.
Wow.
So people had come into the shows and watched 11,000 views.
That's
Wow.
great.
So I thought, good, I'm glad he did me a favor.
Yeah, he did. He did. Okay, so then probably this is going to be one of the last questions here, because it's 11:15 in the evening our time. So we probably need to wrap it up soon, but go ahead.
Can I just say one quick thing, only that Gillian she's watching, and she just wrote something, and those on Facebook, she's given a really good outline on the consensus statement. And I just want to clarify that what I was saying is the consensus statement was brought out on the Friday morning, majority agreed. The afternoon, they brought out a 10-point statement, which Des couldn't put his name to, but was promised it had nothing to do with the proceedings.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just checking that Gillian did understand that's what I meant. And then she's gone into a lot more detail about that. People can read
she's
that if they
written
want to.
She's written books, hasn't she?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So we'll,
can I give her a quick little plug?
Sure.
Please
go
do.
right ahead.
She's got a series of 7 volumes.
Those are huge. Yeah.
On the road to Glacier View.
Wow.
She's got 5. Number 6 is at Glacier View, I think, and then the 7th one of this one is after Glacier View. They're all available on Amazon.
Okay.
But if you want to go deep, you've got my season 2, 86 episodes, and this you can read as you're watching. And it's just absolutely. She's got letters behind the scenes.
Well, we definitely thank her for all that effort. That's unbelievable effort there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And I love that we're all contributing in very unique, different ways. Like your Adventist talk program, Answering Adventism, Defeating Adventism, Test the Prophet, all the stuff that Thunder does, Ambassador does.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of approaches, and I think as a community of YouTubers, we all really enjoy each other's programs too. You know, we really love it. When I was at the former Adventist Fellowship in February in Loma Linda, California, where do you guys live, by the way? You're a Carolina, is it, or
in Virginia?
Virginia, that's right.
We used to live in Loma Linda, but
Wow.
He's a travel nurse.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly moving, but we're both from Texas.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
Right.
we're just here for a little bit in Virginia, but it's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people were at the program, and I got to see Steve Daly face to face. James Wagner, who I've interviewed, came just to catch up with me at the show, at the program. A bunch of people were there. I won't start naming them because there was a heap. But James Baber was there, and he runs Defeating Adventism and Academy Apologia, or something along those lines. He's going to be on the show next week, actually, where we're going to talk about the clear word Adventist Bible.
Oh yeah.
But what I was going to say about him, meeting him in person, he has got an electric chemistry charisma. He just spoke at the close of the meeting just from the floor. He did speak on the stage as well, but he just said something from the floor, and the way he talks, within minutes, the whole room were clapping and almost cheering him. So he he didn't know anything about Adventism until he started his Defeating Adventism
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
And what an incredible approach. So everyone's contributing in different
Yeah.
ways,
Yeah.
and really just putting a light on Adventism, and Adventism left to its own devices with a spotlight on it reveals itself. It reveals the good, but it reveals the not so good. And then people can go, this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing real Adventism, and I can make my own mind up now.
There's something you said today about slippage. You're talking about slippage, and it just I was thinking about that, and I think that is what spooks Adventists so much, is
Yeah.
because they feel this slippage going on of wait a second, we don't have a hold of it like we did before.
Yeah.
Because people now, all the documents from the Ellen White have been released. People can look into different things about Ellen White, historical things, her sermon, all of that. And that slippage is why I think Ted Wilson's doing what he's doing with the Bible, saying we are a church of the Bible. We are the church. I kind of felt sorry for him. I thought, you're a church leader and you are having to tell your constituents who've been there for a long time that you're Bible believers. That just blew my mind.
Yeah, and he probably, and honestly, most Adventists I know believe that.
Yeah.
They truly believe that they are people of the Bible.
Yeah.
It's the greatest deception. Where is it that they're saying that the devil will deceive even the most elect?
Yeah. I don't know where it is, but yeah.
Don't know where that is, but I just believe there's a lot of deception. Yes.
Yeah. The clear word of there are people of the Bible, of the clear word Bible. So, yeah.
Adventism is the opposite of clear. It is a quagmire of confusion.
True. Yeah. That's something that has just, up until I left Adventism, was something that was constantly eating at me, is the confusion. And I could never get any clarity. And you would think with a father that's a pastor that you could have no, because of the thought process to keep everything in a certain order. I don't want to, if I should say under wraps, but
they want to, pre-social media, they were able to keep it under wraps.
Yeah.
They just can't do that now.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not attacking any Adventist friends.
No,
I know there's
not
people
at
watching
all.
that I love my Adventist friends. I love there's a culture there that's incredible. But at the end of the day, it's just confusing, and there's quicker ways to understanding the gospel than via Adventism.
Yeah.
More reliable ways.
Yeah. If an angel,
go to the source.
If an angel from heaven comes and gives a different gospel,
that's right.
You're supposed to walk away. Just walk away. It's not it. So anyway, well, tell our audience where they can find your different places where your social media.
Probably the best place, if people look the red and white and just go SDA Q&A on YouTube, you'll find us. And if you go SDA Q&A on Facebook, you'll find us. You'll see that red and white logo. The Facebook group you have to join. It's a private one, and that is easy to
and don't leave out,
answer a couple of questions.
Don't leave out where can they get your music?
Oh, my music. Well, if you just go to Spotify or Apple Music, you can still buy my music, but people often don't do that anymore. But if you went to iTunes and just looked up Peter Dixon Band, Standing at the Cross. But Spotify, go and listen to it for free. I've been sneaky and had a little, where is it, up here somewhere, my little PayPal donation if you want to scan that code, and they can find me and help with donations, as you guys have so lovingly done. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah, my music, the one that people tend to like the most is Standing at the Cross, Peter Dixon Band.
Okay.
And that's got all that
Excellent.
mellow.
Yeah.
You should sing us out on that.
Well, I'm anyway, anything else? I mean, I don't want to cut it off if anybody had anything else to say. I just thought,
I've kind of been ignoring a lot of the questions because I want to keep this as
yeah.
about Adventist talk. This is your show, and I just feel so grateful to be on it. Thank you. I
Well,
think
let's
it's
just
really
do it again. Do it again
I would
soon.
love that.
Yeah. We have so many topics we have not even began to talk about. We can do soon.
Yeah. But there's a good, great,
yeah.
you gave us a great intro into Peter Dixon.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Seventh-day Adventists are one of a handful of Protestant denominations that believe Christians should rest on the seventh day like ancient Israel and the Jews do today. They base this belief on the Ten Commandments. In addition, they believe the seventh-day Sabbath is the only day God set aside as a special day of worship. Adventists teach that in AD 321, the Roman Emperor Constantine issued an edict declaring Sunday as the day of Christian worship, and that the Catholic Church caved to the emperor's edict by shifting the sacred day from the seventh to the first day of the week. But did the Catholic Church really change the Sabbath day to Sunday? Is there really more to the story? We begin a new series that will be exploring the answers to those questions. We will start at the beginning from Genesis to Mount Sinai, to the life of Christ, to the Reformation, through the 17th century Sabbath wars, all the way to the end of the world. We will be telling the epic tale of this holy day. This is the story of the Sabbath.